And there was one week where in 92, when I was like the most prolific, that like there was 14, 15 flyers being given out, and like 9 or 10 of them were mine. It was just like, that was mind blowing.
That is absolutely insane. You were the visual representation of people's experiences in the rave.
KILLA podcast. KILLAofficial.com.
Instagram UK Frontline.
101.4 FM, 24 hours a day, all genres.
FlexFM.co.uk.
Beatbox created.
KILLA.
And we're here to talk about world music and street culture.
KILLA podcast.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a fine spring, getting into summer situation, and we're of course in times like these, 1-to-1. I'm on a 1, and on the other end we have for your street culture feed, morning feed, a guy that arguably, and I'm confident in saying probably, was the aesthetic to your 90s childhood of rave culture. He most certainly was a pioneer in creating the backdrop, the visual to what we know as 90s rave. He goes by the name of PEZ London. How are you, brother?
Good. Yeah, like you say, it's hot. It's hot today. But we're out in deepest, darkest, secret location town. But yeah, just chilling. Yeah, excited to tell some stories.
Yeah, bro. Hey, listen, secret locations are what these street culture types are about. So you're in good company, my G. Look, I don't, the stories is what people are going to be wanting to hear, like for real. Like that, it's very rare, or it has been up till now rare, to meet somebody which I genuinely feel like you're one of the candidates where the buck stops as far as technical drawing and street, quote unquote, street art for a whole generation of music, which I don't think people realized how influential that look was at the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, there was a look that was like, when you got into the mid-90s, it kind of established, okay, that's what a flyer looks like, right? Yeah. But the early days, early 90s, late 80s, all bets were off. It could be, any kind of style would work. And it's not until people got into that dreamy kind of, PEZ sort of spacey flyer that became synonymous with like dance music culture. Right?
It changed the whole thing, man. Like to think about it now and how much, well, first of all, the attention to detail on those flyers. I mean, we've spoken a couple of times and back and forth on text, and you're very quick to emphasize that a lot of what you did on them flyers, some of those early rave flyers, was done by hand. There was no computer graphics.
Yeah, there's no computer graphics in a PEZ. The only time a computer ever got involved was when we got up to like Helter Skelter flyers towards the millennium, like the late 90s, when I'd paint, say, 6 or 7 paintings, which would then, the main front would always be one picture. But if there was other things to be dropped in, they'd have to be painted separately, and then someone else would bring them in and make the flyer complete. But certainly, like for Helter Skelter flyers at the end, they took about a month to paint. So they weren't just like, okay, Friday night, let's bang out a flyer. It was the commitment, yeah.
That's madness. Yeah. See, the levels on that is crazy. And I think I said this to you the other day, right? Because obviously there is a graffiti upbringing that you came up through, and we're definitely going to get into that. But when I said to you the other day, I was like, like when I was a kid and I used to see the flyers, it was the same feeling I would get when I'd see an Iron Maiden cover and I'd see Eddie. It's like you automatically know that what you're going to get behind the picture is exactly what it says on the tin. You know what I mean?
I mean, for that was the shop window, right? So you knew, when you're looking at this is, okay, this is this level flyer, right? If they are, this kind of style, then it was going to be that level party. But, not just me, but if you had other kind of flyers, you knew like that was, Fantasia had a flyer and it had an image on it. You knew that was going to be a good flyer. Rain Dance had it. There was going to be a level of production, and these people were going to be there. It was going to be that kind of party, right? Same as in the beginning, you got a Sunrise flyer. You knew, like, we know what's happening there. But that was the thing that separated, the house music and the scene from everything else. That was our thing, right? We kind of took it over. Like flyer art has given many, many, many people the opportunity to put their work out there, right? Even if they did one flyer, right? Now you're 40 odd years old. I did the flyer for X. That's your little claim to, your youth right there, because you may have had 250,000 of them printed up and everyone saw it, right? So, and that's how a lot of them were. Someone put on a party, they'd ask their mate who was a designer or, he worked in print or something to design the flyer. But fortunately, from one of the only people that did it full time for a living as a lifestyle. Like, I was going to the parties, attending the parties, doing the stage sets for the parties, like going home after that weekend, sleeping it off a little bit, and then maybe Tuesday getting up and start painting, and then go out again the weekend. It's just, that was kind of went on for a few years like that.
Wow, that is fucking mad. That's crazy to think that you were like, that's a tour mentality. That's a DJ lifestyle.
Yeah, we were just living it, and there was any excuse not to get a real job, right?
I think that still applies to a lot of ravers now as well. We spoke. Now let's just back up a little bit here, because to many of you, that come from a different place entirely, not from the UK, you won't be familiar with the kind of groundwork that these characters like PEZ enabled in the flyer world. I guess the closest comparable is like, I think in fact every scene has their flyers, but there was something about this, and it was an inclusive vibe, an inclusive look that happened within rave culture, and it spread. Like, I had mates, and I was on the fringes of the outro of rave. I was more into hip hop and things like that. But my mates, who were a little older, they were well entrenched in it, and I remember going around to their houses and seeing nothing but these flyers on walls, as if it's like their medals. Like, it's their medals. They won that shit by going to the rave, and the same with the mixtapes. They used to fold the inlay cards. I had a couple of them as well, Shy FX and Ratty and Rat Pack and all that. You know what I mean? Crazy how it filtered into, your daily conscience. You know what I'm saying?
There was two, for me, looking back at it now, there were two sets of people, right? So there were the people that were actually going to the parties who were of age, and they were like, they were having a good time. Yeah, flyer crate party, more about actually going to the party, right? So expected as much at the time by the flyer. Maybe when they got it coming out of the party, they'd be like, yeah, wow, PEZ, what have you done this week? But the people that were probably more loyal to the art were the younger generation, were just underneath them. They couldn't go out yet, but when the record shops were nationwide, they could go to the record shop, they could get the flyers, the bomber jacket, the tape pack, and like kind of be in that as if they're there, but they're not there yet because they're like 15 or whatever. But they would be studying the scene so much more. We said we was going to get into the hip hop thing, but like the way I got, say, Subway art, and I was studying the hip hop in New York. I couldn't go and do it, but I was like 15, and I was like, what is this? So they would be so into the art and looking at it and know more about. Some of them know more about my flyers than me, right? Because it's just been their world, collecting them, sticking them on their wall and whatever. So they were much more loyal. So when they come of age and they could go out a few years later, they were so much more involved in all of it. As opposed to the other people that just were stumbling into it maybe back in like 1990, 91. Ones that came a bit later on, they lived it. It was like in their blood, in their skin already. There was, I can't wait to get out, So there's two sets of PEZ artwork admirers, if you like, for different reasons.
Do you cross paths with them every so often? Like, it seems to me like your Instagram and your socials are very heavily, there's a heavy presence of early adopters and influencers, people that, you know what I mean? Like, if you know what I mean?
I mean, the thing is that now there's a very, there's been quite a lot of interest, at least from like fashion designers and I did a thing for Coach last year. And that was spread all over like East London, Shoreditch and stuff on billboards and things. So there is an interest in looking back at that. So when I was growing up, say we look back at the 60s and what happened with the Beatles and all that kind of era of flower power is like a mystical thing that happened in the past. Like now there's this cachet for people to look back at the rave era and the hip hop era as well, right? With this kind of, wow, much more real back then, or that kind of mindset. So all these things are becoming, they're culture, and looking back at culture in the same way you look back at punk maybe, right? But they're like the 19, 20-year-olds, it's kind of their parents or their uncle's badge of honor, but they like it. They like a lot of the imagery and a lot of stuff. You see it everywhere now, right? Everyone's doing that stuff. So the Instagram and the PEZ, the interesting PEZ is twofold. It's the younger people who are interested in kind of understanding what we all got up to and this kind of revolution that went on, and wishing that they'd kind of grown up then, maybe, like we wish we 60s or something like that. Especially being locked down, right? You've got these stories of your dad or your uncle running around in a field, doing whatever. It's a different time, isn't it? So,
yeah, I mean, arguably, what better time to start experimenting on new music and such? You know what I mean? Not that I'm advocating anything lowbrow, but you know what I mean. It is actually a bit like that, isn't it? Nostalgia is a curious thing, isn't it? And some, like you say, sometimes there's this. It goes in cycles. Things suddenly become very 80s and chic, and then 90s comes in, and this kind of fashionable like resuscitation of old things that is kind of like a throwback to the people that are in the marketplace. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, they use it as to sell, right? So if you see someone in the street wearing flares, it's like, okay, they weren't good the first time, right? So it's funny, but we know why. We know the machine is just doing the machine thing. But it's great now you've got this social media, you've got the Instagram, all that kind of stuff, right? So from people all over the world really like your style, and they might be just coming up. They might be graphic designers. I, on the other hand, get messages from people saying, I became a graphic designer because I was so entrenched in flyers and your flyer artwork. So, if you've inspired one person, then that's great, right?
Yeah, dude, that's really what it's all about, isn't it? Like to feel that you contributed to something that was bigger than you, and you didn't realize you was doing it, but you were just having fun. I mean, that's like the best shit, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just sending messages out, right? Because I wanted to, like, for example, like this is probably one of the biggest messages, right? This is beyond therapy, right? So this is one of
fire.
One of the most disturbed kind of images. So you got these babies that are beyond therapy and they're all smiling and reaching out to each other like a Michelangelo.
Crazy. And
then, but people be like, like who didn't understand what we were doing. Like these guys, they're messed up in the head, right? But it spoke to us. Like it was our secret little picture. It was our thing, right? So that was all I was doing at the beginning, was sort of saying, putting artwork out there that hopefully spoke to people like me, and and that was it. The fact that I enjoyed doing it and loved doing it, and then obviously seeing my flyers everywhere was a bonus. But that was what it was about. It was about saying, no, this is us. This is our thing, right? Because going back to the hip hop thing, when I came into hip hop at like 15, like through Subway Art, that look was established, right? So I was like I call us like the Subway Art generation, like so the Renaissance that happened in New York. I'm monologuing now, right? So the Renaissance that happened in New York, like which just blew up everything. Then as that just spawned where we are now. So we've all now been this subject to this graffiti revolution. Then I've got to the end of say 89 after doing graffiti in sort of 85, 86, 87 era when I was like a teenager, and then 89 comes along, and it's like now there's this whole scene that's just exploded. With no look, with nothing, everything's like open. So I'm okay. So hip hop had like graffiti and all that kind of vibe and style. What's this scene going to have? And it was at the beginning. I'm at the beginning of this road. What's it going to be? Well, do it. Like create it. Just have a go. Be one scene. Be one of these guys from back then. In this scene. So it was really exciting. I felt him inside me, like this choking of like, oh, this is going to happen. This is going to be big. I had no idea how big it was going to be. I thought maybe a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, maybe but not forever. Like it's been like 30 years now, man. Like, geez.
Dude. Have you got any pieces with you of any of your graph from
something
the
else?
80s? Yeah.
This is an outline, right? And thing. So I was doing stuff in like, I lived in Southend at the time. I grew up as a teenager in Southend in Essex, right?
Right.
I was writing then, and there was a friend of mine called Framer. So he was still writing. He was younger than me. He was like one of my I was mentor as such, if you like, right? And then so he said, come on, get yourself out. Let's do one last piece before you disappear completely.
Right.
This is I don't know if you really see it on the camera, right? But there's the Framer character on the end there, right?
Shit, that's sick, bro. That's so authentic. That is so like of the time.
Yeah. So that was my like goodbye to graffiti back then, and you know, so it was, and but then it was quite funny because graffiti at the end for me, we used to go to if you want to go back there, it was 15 years old, 16 years old, bunking on the train up to London, going to Ladbroke Grove, going to Covent Garden, like many people who are in the b-boy hip hop scene or whatever, but you was all naive and young, buying your 12 record in Groove Records or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was all right at that time. I mean, maybe it's my naivety, but at that time it felt pretty safe. I mean, we used to go to Ladbroke Grove quite in those times, right, 85, 86, and it was all right. But then by the time 88 came around, it got proper heavy. You could go out there and get taxed and like all your things taken, or at best and worse. So it became a bit moodier. And so then when the house thing came along, where everyone was included, it was quite funny because I'd bump into writers and people from that old scene that we used to have like issues or beefs with or whatever you used to say back then, and they'd be all loved up and going, oh, PEZ, it's all gone, So it was a contrast from feeling like love for hip hop at the beginning when it was love, in the early days, like, or are you a b-boy, are you a rapper, are you a graffiti artist, and doing all those different roles and breakdancing and all that, to then it kind of changed and got a bit heavy. And then house changed that. It was quite funny how you see the old characters coming out and being friends when there were no business being friends before,
Yeah. What was it like in those early days of Rave?
Between 88 and 90, end of 1991, it was like cowboys and Indians. It was like the Wild West, and anything was possible. It was just, everything was crazy, man. You never knew what was going to happen. Was the party going to happen? Where's the generator? You're on the phone going, where's the generator? Oh, it's hiding here, and it's going to go there. So it was like some like comedy, right? Really. Yeah. It just all happened, and then suddenly there's like 5,000 people and a load of fairgrounds and speakers and everything. It was, and that's what made it. Everything was like, everyone was so excited, like, oh, butterflies, like times 10, because you just didn't know if it was going to happen. Where are we going now? Oh, it's not here. We're in the wrong place. You drive another 50 miles, like it was nothing, and then get to another place, then drive somewhere else. And it was like very much like that, and everyone was in it. It's like, do you know anything? Do you know anything? And so the energy levels were palpable. Like you could turn up even just to a service station, and the energy levels were palpable. You could just taste. I can only imagine that being at a football like match, like the final, right? And just that kind of intense feeling of like, is it going to be us? Is it going to like, oh, and all the whole crowd feels it together. That same like energy levels are just there, just because we just want to go to this party. So it was like that. It was all very naughty. It was all misbehaving and all just being a bit cheeky. It wasn't nasty. It wasn't criminal, even though you were breaking the law, I guess. But it was just, and every end, everything you wanted to do at the end was to try and have a good time with friends, right? It wasn't about the DJ. It wasn't about who was playing. It wasn't about we're going to worship somebody, or not there's anything wrong with that. Sorry, DJs, right? But it's just, it was just, let's get to a space, right, where there's some music and like some speakers and the DJ that you like, and all your pals, and you're just going to go crazy. And if you can for like maybe 12, 14 hours or whatever. And for it to even happen at all was it. And that's what I think is lost a little bit. And it sounds like I'm going, oh, the times were so much better when I was young. I'm not saying that. It's just they still do free parties now, and I'm sure the that you still have that same kind of, you know, excitement. But the trouble is that everyone was the same. And as it grew exponentially over the time, from like 1,000, 2,000 people up to like 20,000 people, that race from that point to this point was super fast. And it was a roller coaster. We just weren't getting off, and no one wanted to get off. That was the thing. It was great.
It's actually a crying shame that things in their beginnings, it was the same with punk. I think it's the same with a lot of like subcultures and whatnot. What starts off as a really great a creative idea, it suddenly grows horns and two tails and two necks, and it you know what I mean? It never stays yours, does it? It's really hard to control it after a period of time, and then you get that's actually what makes it more fun, because you know that this is now it's like a virus and it's fucking happening. But then at the same time, it's like shit, like this all could come crashing down at any moment.
Yeah, well, what happened? It just split up, right? Because people would start to realize that the DJs they liked were kind of playing slightly different music. So the good thing about the early parties was that you come in and say Fabio was on, right? So you'd like Fabio because for whatever reason. Then someone else would come on and you'd be like, no, it's not for me, let's go have a wander, right? So one room, there wouldn't be like all these arenas or whatever. So you just have a wander and you'd just be like, okay, so let's go do something else. So then what happened was drum and bass grew out of it, and then happy hardcore grew out of it, you know, garage grew out, all these different, like you said, horns and heads and different things grew out. So you could just go to a party and listen to just your kind of music all night. So that's what gave it legs, but also killed the beast as such, because then it wasn't this one unified beast that was just like running rampant across the country. It started to kind of, you know, like Gizmo created the Gremlins, right? So like they just popped. Drum and bass just popped up over there. This one's popped up over there, and they all created havoc in their own little world. And
then you get these hierarchies of people that didn't like hardcore but liked jungle, and then you get the junglists, and you know there's this room 1, room 2, room 3 kind of thing that's popping off, and the rivalries in that, right?
To grow, because then you could have superstars within their genre, right? So you have MCs, you'd have DJs that could then like play to a whole new set of people. So it just got so much bigger. Yeah, it was and that's why it's had longevity, right? Because of the splitting up. Yeah,
I did, actually, now you come to mention it and you put it like that. I never thought about it like that. But the reason why these genres came to fruition around the same time was because of the entertainment factor. They wanted to keep people's attentions, and that's why the MCs started coming in, and that's where, like you say, these seeds of new styles of music started emerging.
Yeah, and they grew out of, like, say, London would have its own kind of vibe. So world dance was very drum and bass orientated, and that was like where I was happiest. And sort of AWOL and the Paradise Club, you know, that was kind of like, that was the seed of all like the drum and bass scene in London. And then, for example, those silly things like from September to like spring, you were in clubs. It was moody. It was like winter. Like everyone was back to uni and everyone was in town, and so it was inside. And let's get down and dirty to drum and bass beats, breaks, like, you know, and that's what happened. So for a lot of my artwork is for that drum and bass kind of scene, and then you'd have another lot of artwork which would say for the happy hardcore scene, and so that would have to be happier and like a little bit more colourful, maybe a bit cheesy, but as such. But that's what kept it alive, and that gave me a lot more opportunity to work for different people, because all these different events needed flyers, right? Yeah. So I had to create different looks for different things, but still being PEZ, which is difficult.
Yeah, that's a trick in itself, isn't it? To try and refine and keep moving forward with the progression of a scene that is constantly evolving.
Yeah, but I think, you know, now as people are looking back, unless you're actually, like you said about the Insta and stuff, unless you're actually living in it and you're in touch with what it was and know about it, someone coming in from outside and trying to understand the nuances of that, it's very difficult. It's just seen as kind of club culture or whatever. And that's what seems to be happening now. Is in retrospect, you're looking at it as a whole thing. So like beginning, so it's kind of come full circle, right?
That's interesting. You say that, yeah. And I think maybe even I do it. Although I was like I say, I was more into hip hop. I was a little bit younger, but obviously all the kings were there. Like the ones with the thrones, they were undeniably like superstar DJs. And your whole, it's weird how the whole, because of the free party and the illegal rave of it all, like you'll find, I mean, I'm from West Sussex, right? And there wasn't a weekend that go by where I wasn't losing mates to they're going to some legal place near Worthing or Brighton or in the Downs or, near Crawley. These were all areas where they would cover. So this was such a widespread thing, right? And yeah, it's mad to think that it had such huge coverage and yeah, you had your kings and you had this ever move. It was an ever flowing presence and it constantly changed, right?
Yeah, and the thing was is that you, like you said about people, you're losing and people, right? So I'd be at Rain Dance like in East London, and then I'd see like writers and people from the hip hop scene just, I'm like, what are they doing here? I'm like, well, I'm there, so why aren't they there, right? So as and they're just coming for a good time, right?
Yeah.
Have football who are on opposite teams, in the same arena that usually were beating each other up on a Saturday, and now kind of, having a good time and everything's forgotten. It was a good time in that respect because all the bets were off, whether you were white, black, gay, fat, thin, rich, skinny, whatever, whatever your MO was, it didn't matter. You were in, you didn't, and you were safe. You were pretty.
Yeah, man. And like you put it, it was your own interpretation. It was an equivocal of what America had done with hip hop. What I find interesting about your direction and choice of creative output is like there would be a tag on a train or a piece on a trackside, but you had adapted it so that you infiltrated like people's, bags and people's walls, and like you were constant. Your art was constantly being handed out at the end of raves.
That's what I was we were talking before, right? And just sort of the way I kind of view it is that Instagram now is like flyers, right? So if you think about it, everyone's on there looking at what's happening on Instagram and it's just all image. So flyers were like analog Instagram back in the day.
That's fire. Yeah, go on. As was sick.
Or they were like trained. So in the rules were in early graffiti, it was like you had to learn all different disciplines, like the outlines, the characters, the colouring, all those different things before you become like, king or whatever. And then you'd have to have pieces running all over the town to be like all out king and all this kind of stuff. Like the hierarchy of working your way up through the ranks, right? Whereas
yeah, for sure.
Your stuff was up everywhere, being seen by everybody, and your tag was known. So my tag was PEZ from the graffiti. It went onto a flyer. And suddenly now, Beyond Therapy, for example, did this massive poster, the one with the babies, right? Massive poster, my second flyer, and it was absolutely huge. Like people were handing them out like the big like A2 flyers, A2 giving them out, and I'm like,
mad. I remember them. I was fucking mad.
These posters and the flyers. I mean, a 19-year-old kid with all this stuff everywhere used to do like a bit of graffiti and be all like, wanting to be that. That's it. Ticked all the boxes. That's it. If that stopped there, I would have been happy. I remember coming to Rage because we lived in Rage, right? We'll go if you get onto Rage in a minute, but we come out of Rage, and that was the beginning of the weekend on Thursday, right? And that would be where you'd learn what was going on, all the flyers out of Rage. And there was one week where in '92, when I was like the most prolific, that like there was 14, 15 flyers being given out, and like 9 or 10 of them were mine. It was just like that was mind blowing.
That is absolutely insane. You were the visual representation of people's experiences in the rave.
Yeah, I mean that might have been like my peak right there in '92 of volume, because they were a lot easier to paint then, because they weren't so involved. But that, particularly in London anyway, in the London area, the southeast scene, But so it was a lot to be sort of 20 years old and do all that. It was mad. And the other thing is that I was quite anonymous really from it, because it was only the flyers I knew, my friends knew, but I wasn't say Groove Rider or like, you know, any of these other guys who was like up there in the front. I was just like coming out, going, yeah, man, look at this, look, just so excited about that. That was enough.
It's crazy to think how like from inception you were doing art freehand, and then that was getting repressed. Like nowadays, there are so many portals and platforms in which you can take advantage of technology and be whatever you want to be as a side hustle to your main event that you're doing. Like it's crazy to think that you were so good at what you were doing that you were able to just do that, and the time it took and the turnaround like that. This whole thing, it's bizarre to think about it now because there is just so much opportunity with technology and it's in abundance. But back then, it really was a case of, you know, there's no jack of trades here. You are you focus in on that thing and you'll be successful, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you got to think at that time, there wasn't Photoshop like there is now. So me and H, who was the guy that I used to do the first flyers with in the early days, we went to college together and we were like airbrusher. He was being taught by a really like well-known airbrush artist at the time. So me and him would like be together just trying to like experiment, and he'd be getting all the tips and all the knowledge from the expert. And so I'd be going, H, we've got to do a flyer for so-and-so this week. So we'd be just there trying to mix it up with airbrush and masking film and copying, you know, all that kind of stuff. Because if we'd have been born 5 years later, we'd have done it on Photoshop. We would never have done it the old school way. We would have because by then, later, Photoshop was in, you know, it was much quicker, it was much more accessible at that point. But at that point, it wasn't. We're talking about 88, right? And talking about, we want to look like we've done it on Photoshop. We want to look like we've done it on a computer. We want to look like it's that level. But we're just doing...
I fucking love that. I love that played out like that with you guys.
Small spray can, basically. That's what an airbrush is. It's a mini spray can, right? So it was just, come on. We take jobs we couldn't even know how to do. It's like, yeah, we can do that. And we're like, what? So we've got like a week to sort this out. And we just, and like history said it, we did it. And here we are, you know.
It's initiative though, right? I mean, you're forcing, okay, on one hand, you're forcing yourself into a situation and you want to improve yourself, but also you're pushing forward that DIY culture, and you're setting a standard, and you're expanding on the movement. Yeah,
and we wanted to get paid, right? So we're there to just send this message out to everybody, right? And we're here to like, this is what we're doing. We're keeping this roller coaster going, right? So every week, another flyer, we know there's another event, and there was a period of time when the police and the government cracked it down, and we thought, this is it. It's over, right? Yeah. We managed to get through that, and then some of the parties got licenses, and then that was it. Once they got licenses, once we went to the early 90s, and then we're hitting into like Helter Skelter, which was a legal party, we then, you know, got a license. Yeah, Dreamscape getting licensed, Rain Dance getting licenses. So then we had these big players, right? They were putting their money into a business and a scene, which then we knew now we were starting to put down roots and genres were happening. And for us to then be able to produce artwork and like I say, not get a proper day job, it was great that I knew there was a few more years in this. And then I made some good friends. I made friends with like Richard from Rain Dance, Dave from Helter Skelter, and we're now still friends today. But, you know, I chose to kind of whittle it down as the flyers become more involved and took longer. Well, I'm just going to work for Rain Dance. I'm just going to work for Helter Skelter. I'm just going to work for World Dance. And kind of all the odd little flyer things I used to do all the time, I had to kind of cut back and but the artwork benefited because it got much more detailed and much more messed up.
Yeah, exactly. You got to focus on there comes a time with everything, I think, where, especially if you're a creative, where you put your eggs in certain baskets, and you just know. Like, I mean, these are huge names. You know what I mean? Like Dreamscape. You know what I mean? Helter Skelter. Like, did you get involved with any of the tape packs as well? The designs of them?
Yeah, so the tape packs, bomber jackets, t-shirts, slip mats. It was on everything. You know, we had a shop in the King's Road for Rain Dance. Helter Skelter probably sold more merchandise than anybody else.
Yeah, for sure.
On the tape back stuff. So, for me now looking back, I took it in my stride at the time that it was just this is what we're doing. But you look back and think, okay, well, yeah, you got pretty busy and your stuff was pretty everywhere.
It's mad, bro. It's fucking mad. Like, I'm talking to you who did that shit. It's crazy.
Crazy times. But it was the norm. It was the norm. That was day to day. That's what we did. And it's now sort of come full circle now, where I'm enjoying painting. I'm not painting for anybody as such, right? So, you're creative, right? So when you're creating something maybe for a deadline or for something, right? So that's good because it pushes you. But sometimes it's nice to just get up and go, do you know what? I feel like I'm just going to create something today.
Mate, tell me about it, for real, yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it does, and it's nice because I can just sit there, put the music on, set the mood, do the thing, right? And music obviously being an influence like we spoke about before as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's actually baffling that as time's gone on, like the criminal justice bill was like a very heavy penalty for a lot of people. You must have thought, oh well, we're fucked. The whole scene's fucked. Like,
yeah. Well, it was okay because on the day when we all protested in Trafalgar Square, the freedom to party, we had we broke into a warehouse and had a party that night, right? And my lasting memory of that party is being out the back and the police are chasing a rabbit, right? A guy dressed in a rabbit costume. Hanging on the head of the rabbit costume by the ears, and he's trying to make it across the fields, right, to the party because he was at the protest in his rabbit suit, right? But and they're trying to chase him. These two old school bobbies with the big hats on, right? And they're running there and they're running across him. And everyone is outside turned to watch him, and it's like a baseball thing. And he gets across the line and he's safe, And you that is an analogy of it. Really, is that he got across the line. He's safe, right? And so you could say that is indicative of what happened after that. Once they shut us all down, what they didn't like, it wasn't so much that we were being naughty or running around and getting the generation. It's just they weren't getting paid. So
yeah.
They wanted to then after that go, okay, you can have a license, but then we're going to take X amount of money for the sales and the tickets and up to that it was all under the counter at record shops, maybe a bit cash or dodgy dealings. But after that, the government will allow us to gather in purpose venues, and so that's why the raves happened at the Sanctuary and in Rain Dance, say in East London under the big tops, because that was okay. We could all go do what we were doing, but it was legal. It was someone was getting paid, hopefully.
Someone getting paid. That's what I was going to say, because it is baffling to me. I had Tony Prince. He was a famous DJ on Radio Luxembourg. He also went on and done the World DMC Championships, the DJ Championships thing back in the day. It's still prevalent now. Like, they have it every year, and it's just a huge technical jerk off of tenacity behind a set of decks, right? And he was saying, but back in the day, like, music was dangerous. Like, you had to be an FM radio station, you needed to be on a boat in the middle of the Scandinavian Ocean somewhere, and you weren't allowed to just and it's crazy the way that the control of that, whether it's the government, I don't know. I think music sometimes loses its own risk and danger, and some things are best left under the under the curtain, behind the curtain of the show. Do you know what I mean? And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's the difference in feel. Like, going to, say, the Sanctuary was fantastic, right? You had a great night. Some of the best DJ sets I've heard there, with certain MCs or whatever. Stevie Hyper D, for example.
Big up, Steve. Rest in peace.
And Darren J, that goes down as one of the best connected DJ MC sets for me anyway, in drum and bass. But so for that, they still happen. You still have those moments. I can feel the hairs going back in the neck, right? So they had those moments, but they're equally not the same as the deregulated, like, let's run around the M25 trying to find a spot to stick a generator. You know, that's the difference. But it's funny you should mention, like, the music. It's funny you should mention that in the way that the DJ Cheese and the mixing championship, that time, that feeling of music for me was always still inside going into house music, right? So,
right.
And the drop and the, you know, just the technical ability of throwing it in and then the break and then just that, when the break dancer gives you that spin and the freeze that you weren't expecting, that needed that from house music, right? So when the music changed and to have like breaks or drum and bass that would drop that and give you that fulfillment that you used to get from hip hop, right? Or like the MC, like the hip hop MC, like Eminem when he goes blah, 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 and just like, oh no, he didn't, you know, it's so much.
Yeah.
In my artwork, when I'm listening to music, I need to be inspired from that drop, that break, that mixing, that technical ability. Whereas some house music, and you know, which is nice when you're on beefer and you're in a certain frame of mind and it just kind of goes, that's lovely, but it's not giving me that kind of, you know, that bam that I need. So when I'm looking for inspiration, I need that level of like wow, like, you know, like you got Rocksteady Crew t-shirt right there. When you see them break and move or something like that, I need that satisfaction. You can't just give me a tune and that's it. You've got to keep delivering.
Yeah.
You have to keep doing it. You have to keep delivering. Boom, boom, boom. So for me, for the art, for the inspiration, for the music, whatever genre it's from, it has to keep me in that like frame of mind, that buzz, that hype. And not a lot of music can do that. Can the way that hip hop can, and in the way that like certain house music can.
Yeah. And drum and bass has that as well. You know, like nowadays you can get any sample pack under the sun. You can get anything you want. If you want to sound like a certain producer or a certain genre, you can do that. For me, it's like when people use their own personality is when they contribute a song by adding a certain twist to it that is like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, what the hell's that? Do you know what I mean? It's like that's a character play. Do you know what I mean? It humanizes it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it can influence, like, and that's one of the things I don't know about other artists, but for me, if it connects with me, that can produce a certain piece of artwork. Like Kino has produced that, and it's just got these haunting violins and wow noise in it, and it's just like, it's not your everyday thing, and it's just, I caned it to death. Now when you just get a tune, you just got to keep playing until you just can't play it anymore. And but he doesn't know that has produced 2 or 3 pieces of artwork that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have heard that track.
For real.
And even, you know, hip hop and stuff as well. It's got to have, you know, it will just give me that lift in the studio. I need to go the extra hour to carry on because it takes time. At 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, because mostly I paint at night, right? Because no one bothers me, right? So then I've got, and it's the difference between something being really good or just a normal PEZ picture, if there is such a thing. That's nice.
Dude, it's crazy. It's crazy. Okay, look, techers talk. All right, let's open the toolbox. Right, what were you using outside of airbrushes to create the art pieces back in the day?
Just Bristol board was the paper. Then it was inks, acrylic inks, and you know, hand painting as well, and then masking film. So you mask out your little area, spray your little area, take it off. So essentially, that would give us that different crisp, like so. For example, this will give you this flyer here. Right, this is a well dance flyer. Right, so hands there. You got the glass floor. It's pretty intricate going on, but you got a nice spacey background going on with the moon and whatever.
Bro,
right?
You did that piece in Stockwell, right? You did that.
Oh, you know,
the Hall of Fame.
303, right? He called me. And he's gone, PEZ, I'm going to do the world's biggest flyer. I'm like, what do you mean? He's gone, I'm going to do the world dance flyer. And it was like 24 foot by 24 foot. And I was so, like, I don't know, just welled up, like, with just pride that another artist of such note would want to paint one of my pieces, right? And just
that shit is so OG. Ain't that going back in full cycle, huh? Ain't that coming back around to the graph thing, you know?
Right, and now that's it. So there's been a lot of that, right? That's what I'm saying. So from graffiti to airbrush to back to graffiti with pad, right? So that was, and I really enjoyed that day. Spent the whole day there with him, and it was funny picking up again and just filling in a little bit. But it was his show. I couldn't do it, you know. But yeah, it was good times. Good times.
Yeah, it's fucking sick. So it was a whole batch of hodgepodge different pieces of gear that helped you create, because airbrushes they're sick for the delicate tones of shade and color. But one thing that I don't know is by any means must, isn't it? It's like if there is something that can facilitate a particular look, it's like just do it. Especially back then, it's like fuck, it doesn't matter. Just if it works, it works. It's all hands on and get dirty with the materials, right?
Materials were it, right? So as Bum Black back in the 80s was the paint for the Chrome Angels, right? To give you those colours that no one else knew how to get if you didn't know, right? Yeah. And that gave you, like, I earmarked this piece as one of the defining pieces that I knew I wanted to be, you know, this piece, right? I mean,
bro, yeah, honestly, yeah, fire.
Right. So back then I was just like, I've just got to do this, you know, and so the colours and the fade. And so when you say materials give you a look, that was the indicative events, that was the materials. So a PEZ flyer looks like a PEZ flyer because, yeah, it's painted by a PEZ or an H and whatever, but it's because we use those materials in a certain way and we wanted to try and capture. There's a lot of similarities in the blues and the reds and the yellows and the golds that I use in the flyers, which hark back to that period of graffiti where they were very prevalent in the Chrome Angels style, right? Because they work for a reason. They make you feel that way because the blend and the fade is like, it works. And so when we went to the next level, which was the doing the flyers, we've obviously still got that in us, that kind of yearning to create that kind of look. So there's a lot of blue in my flyers. There's a lot of darks, blues and fades, and then contrasting reds and yellows and golds. And for that way, there's probably a look, because I can't paint those flyers like that anymore because the materials aren't available that I had then. So they're gone. That look is gone. I can try and create it and have a thing, but I couldn't ever create one exactly like it was then because the Bristol board isn't available like it was then. And the film that they made back then was very different, and it allowed you to get away with more. Because if you think about it, you're painting 100 different pictures at the same time on one piece of paper. Every time you peel off a bit of film, right, you could rip the paper back and then spoil the whole gig.
Of course, yeah, totally. That's the first thing that crossed my mind, and it's actually it's like old Kodak film or Polaroid film, isn't it? Like you can't get that. It's hard to explain it because now I'm going to go into music, but that analog feel is that analog equivocal of like tone and grit, and it's such a shame that you can't buy those things now, isn't it?
For example, right, I know how to use Photoshop, right? So if I go back in and I go into one of my files, right, and I want to repair it because the piece of artwork is, say, 30 years old, and I've had it, you can't use an airbrush in Photoshop that is the same texture and the same, like if I've got to fill in a bit of blue, unless I clone it or do some kind of magic, right? I can't paint in the same way. It's too nice now. Like it's too smooth. Like all gradients are too soft. Whereas this might look like all like nice and soft and thingy, but it's, when you look close up at it, it's very grainy. So it is of that time, right? So let's leave it there. It's tied up in a nice bow. That's PEZ flyers, like in that. Done. Like, okay, what's next? Let's do something.
Yeah, totally. You've really just got to. But it's really nice. It's actually, you must feel pretty good with yourself that you were like spearheading a visual representation over time, and you were the king in the game doing it, and you like there is nothing else there that no one can do that shit anymore. Like no one can do it. You burnt the evidence. There's no more. You can't get the equipment. You can't get the materials. That's amazing.
I mean, for example, DJ had a hit like, the Prodigy came up there, and you had SL2 coming up. You had all these like, all these different acts coming up that were just like kids, right? And so then they're owning it, and they were just owning their shit and their creativity and just like bang, success. And one of the things that I often run into is that people don't realize just how many flyers were produced. So they didn't know that, because they know they went to World Dance and they know maybe that was a PEZ flyer, or they went to another one. So they don't really realize that I pretty much worked for every one of the organizations at some point, but it was just that A flyer. Because some of the promoters would say to me, I just want to have a PEZ flyer in my collection. I've used this guy all the time, but I just want this event to be a PEZ flyer. So can you please do me a PEZ flyer? So I'm like, okay, fine. So that would be like a PEZ mix for that thing, right? It's like a remixing thing, right? So I'm proud to have been so prolific, but I'm proudest of the set of work that I'm probably most proudest of are the Helter Skelter flyers, because they're just so intricate, and just I gave everything into those in the last years of doing flyers, right? Up until like the Millennium Flyer. So 1990s up to 98, 99, 2000. The artwork then was just, wow. That, like I said to you, would take a month to produce. So something behind like that is really cool. And I'd not shut down. I stopped painting because I, sidestepped into restaurants, just funnily enough. But it wasn't till about 4 years ago. So I'd spent about 10 years out of the game, I guess, artwork. So I was just concentrating on getting businesses going and doing. And then it's like one of those little kind of Netflix film stories where my daughter finds all my art folders. Right, I've got like the old classic like student folders with like a lot of the originals in, right, from the flyer days.
Oh, amazing!
So she'd go, "What's all this?" And so, "Oh yeah, that's my art." So she knew I used to do painting because she'd heard, right, but never seen any of it. And so she says, "Dad, are you crazy, man? You need to paint. Like, what are you doing, running restaurants and like doing that when this is you? Like, this is." So she's hit me up with this like heavy guilt trip about turning my back on myself and all this. And I was just like laughing, going, "Okay, all right." So I set up a little studio in the house, and so I did the first canvas was just to see if I could do it. I bought an airbrush. I still had all my old stuff, right, in lockup or whatever. So I got the old compressor out, which did all the flyers. I still got the same drawing board that did all the flyers, the same compressor that did all the flyers. And I got a new airbrush, treated myself. And then my first picture was of her and her sister, right, just in black and white, like a monotone kind of thing, just to see if I could like still have some skills, right? I was nervous. It was really, really weird. So then I did that, and then that was just like nearly 3 or 4 years ago. And it's just gone crazy since then. And I've really enjoyed it. It's helped me to deal with the day-to-day of like the pressures of business and pressures of running like what I do, with the restaurants and stuff. Now I'm still doing, you've seen my PEZ bits online and all the...
Yeah, man. So tell me, I want this to be true. I'm hoping you're going to say yes. Like, is this a side hustle? You're still doing it, and they're going out as PEZ art pieces from and being purchased with the knowledge that you did all those flyers back in the day?
I'm doing canvases like to order, like there's GG behind me there, right? GG Hadid and Handsman 2020 there, which is another thing. But yeah, so I'm doing that, but I'm also just painting and gathering up like canvases and stuff. And I've done a couple of books. So yeah, that's shameless promotion. So we had this book which brought out this year, Culture, right? That's on my website. And basically it's all the like the stuff, like how, like with all my work just for rain dance. That's one book, and that's just rain dance artwork, right?
Too much for me, mate. This is too on point. It's like you got it nailed, and it all comes back to your work ethic when you was a kid. Fucking amazing.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, if I'm going to leave a good positive message on this like podcast, the KILLA podcast, is that I want to say that back then I just believed, because there was a kind of belief, and I don't know if it was just me or the people that we were surrounded with. We were lucky we just believed we could do anything, right? I don't know if it's that belief. We just believed. I didn't come from money. I had no money. We were just like working class family. And I just believed that I was going to be a millionaire, and that was it, and I just got to crack on. Come on, tomorrow we'll be millionaires or whatever. So, and just got to keep cracking away and believe it and use all the tools you've got. Like I said, back in the day, we had like a mobile phone, or our friend had a mobile phone when we were like turned 19 or whatever. And we were running around fields and doing all this stuff and created a whole scene from literally nothing. Yeah. And they've got all the tools, they've got this thing in their hands, like create some crazy thing like we did. Yeah, because we're getting too old now, right? So just you go do something. I want to watch someone else cause chaos and like just upset the apple cart a little bit, because I know we're all on lockdown now and that's a whole different thing. But when we come out of this, I'm begging like the generation out there now to use all these tools to just go and create some chaos, because it's what we need. We need a bit of like creative chaos.
Mate, I could not agree. Oh, dude, I could not agree anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like it's you're so right. There needs to be a shake-up. There needs to be something like, yeah, you know what I mean? It's a Red Bull culture. You know what I mean? Like there needs to be a real injection of anarchy or something, right?
Use this like platform, right? I mean, you know, I don't know. I'm not being cynical. I'm just saying, like, look, let's have some fun. Use your tools. Yeah. Like everything's too heavy in a minute. So afterwards, like, just go out there. Like life's too short. Just do it. Like, just believe you can do it. You can do it. Don't worry, you didn't get a like today. Just crack on and do something crazy. You know.
You're fucking right. Absolutely, man.
Oh man, right. Here ends the lesson according to PEZ, man. What?
Listen, bro. And I'm hoping this very much that people that have never put face to art have now done, you know, themselves a favor and checked out PEZ and go onto the Instagram, check out not only some legacy work, but culture defining artwork of some of the, you know, a lot of people went to them raves. They've probably got some of your flyers at home without question. So, you know, to anyone out there that has not ever crossed PEZ before, check them out on Instagram, get the books, get involved, remind yourself what this, you know, what this legacy is about, man. And yeah, big up yourself, PEZ, honestly.
Big up yourself as well. Big up everybody out there. Get out there and do some stuff.
That's the shit. Thank you so much for coming on, PEZ, man. It's been a pleasure, brother. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, KILLA podcast, out like in was out of fashion, all right? You know what it do, okay? Stay locked on, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, and more importantly, make the anarchy happen, right, PEZ?
Yeah, 100%.
Stay lucky, people. Peace.
Beatbox created. And we're here to talk about world music and street culture.
KILLA podcast.